Good evening. I'd like to call the April 19th, 2021 Wilson School Board meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Here. Kasper? Here. Dr. Kennedy? Here. Mrs. Kocher?
Here.
Mr. Martin?
Here.
Mr. McCrae?
Here.
Mr. Nigrini?
Here.
Mr. Schneider?
Here.
Mr. Hart?
Here.
9 present, 0 absent.
Please stand for the posting of the colors.
Sir, requesting permission to post colors. Colors. Post. Please, arms.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Order. Arms. Colors reversed. March. Right. Face. March time. March. Forward. March.
Mr. Moravich, we do not have any public participation on agenda items. Would you like to say anything?
I guess if there's anything on a non-agenda, I'll say it at that point. If that's okay.
Thank you. Communications. We have a presentation tonight by Mark Vind. I'll turn it over to Dr. Faidley.
I'll go ahead and this evening, members of the board, Mike Vind from Financial Solutions is here to do a short presentation regarding the debt services parameters resolution that's on the agenda this evening.
Good evening, everyone. This is just a recap of what we've been going over in Finance Committee meetings. And I believe the same presentation was passed out to the full board on April 6th as well, right before your executive session. But right now, due to the low interest rate environment, you have for your consideration a parameters resolution that would authorize the financing of the $45 million, up to $45 million for the high school project, as also with the fields. This would keep your run rate. Right now, your total debt service outstanding is $10.9 million every year. It only goes out to 2028. We wanted to keep that so it's a budget cash flow neutral from a total debt service perspective, and based on where the rating is of the school district, as well as the interest rate environment, we're able to achieve that and only have the debt go out to 2033 after this financing is completed. So right now we have the debt that goes out to 2028 at $10.9 million maximum annually, and the debt based on where rates are right now, if the district decides to move forward tonight and rates hold in, we would be able to lock that in at a 10.9 million run rate, adding the $45 million and having the debt only go out to 2033. And with that, I would be happy to answer any questions that the district might have.
What current rates do you think are available?
Going out to 33, you're looking at somewhere in the yielding, Mike, probably under 2%.
Thank you.
Mr. Vin,
Yes.
is there any benefit or issue with us doing the borrowing for the first phase now, and then the second phase later, as opposed to waiting until we know a total for both phases together?
This actually allows the flexibility, since it's only going to go out to 2033, allowing you to wrap additional debt service around if in the event that you decide to move forward to phase 2 later on. The benefit of doing it right now is rates have started to creep up since January. And as things start to open up from COVID, the consensus is the rates are going to continue to start rising. Now, it might not be very quick, but if you know you're going to borrow for this particular project, it makes some sense for your consideration to lock in these rates right now before they move up. But it does allow the flexibility that if you want to do something in the future, you have a lot of room to wrap that around in future years.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Looking for a motion to approve the minutes of the school board meeting held on, I'm sorry, real quick. There was an executive session held after our last meeting to discuss property. Looking for a motion to approve the minutes of the school board meeting held on April 6, 2021 as attached. Mr. Case first, do you have a second? Mr. Martin, any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Treasurer's report, Mr. Martin.
President, I submit for approval tonight the Treasurer's report, the investment report, the general and capital funds reports, and other financial reports as presented.
Do we have a first? Do you have a second?
McCray?
Mr. McCray, any discussion? Roll call, please.
Case? Yes. Mrs. Kasper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy? Yes. Mrs. Kocher?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Nigrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
Payment of the bills, Mr. Martin.
Yes, Mr. President, I submit for approval tonight bills in the amount of $3,126,985.59. Out of the capital reserve, we have $126,754.57. And out of the 2019 construction fund, $31,591.
Thank you. We have a first. Do we have a second? Mr. Schneider, any discussion? Roll call, please.
Dr. Kennedy? Mrs. Kocher?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. McCray? Mr. Nigrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
Financial reports, Mr. Martin.
Mr. President, I submit for approval, all these are for March, the cafeteria report, child care, Southern Middle School, Wilson West Middle School, and the senior high.
Thank you. We have a first. Do we have a second? Mrs. Kocher, any discussion? Roll call, please.
Dr. Kennedy? Mrs. Kocher?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Nigrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mrs. Kasper?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
Superintendent's report, Dr. Faidley.
Thank you, President Hart. I present this evening the superintendent's report, inclusive of the personnel and program recommendations for board consideration.
Looking for a motion to approve 6.1 through 6.6. Mr. Martin first. Do we have a second? Mrs. Kocher, any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Kocher?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Nigrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mrs. Kasper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy? Mr. Hart?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
Under consent items, looking to accept with gratitude the following donation from Lindsay and Nathan Bankert, a check in the amount of $400 for Shiloh Hills for all the faculty and staff needs they have. Looking for a motion? Mrs. Kocher first. Do we have a second? Mr. McCray, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Under Human Resources, request approval of 5 full-time building substitutes for the elementary schools. Salary to be determined based on education and experience in accordance with the collective bargaining agreement. 8.2, request approval of 3 full-time English language learner positions due to the increased numbers in English language learners and federal regulations. Again, salary to be determined on education and experience. 8.3, request to approve the employees for specialized leave under the FFCRA to ensure Peace's years of service credits is maintained. 8.4, request to approve the Wilson Virtual Academy pilot compensation as attached. Looking for a motion to approve Human Resources items 8.1 through 8.4. Mrs. Cocker first. Do we have a second? Mrs. Kasper, any discussion?
Yes, Mr. President, I'd just like to just say that I'm really happy to see that we are increasing the positions for English learner because of the increased population. And I just want to make sure that we understand that with the increase of positions, that this also means increase of resources for the students. It's not just the positions that will help with working with the students and the population. I teach a lot of the parents, the non-English speaking parents in our district, and their number one thing for learning English is they want to help their children with their education. And so, we really need to see and look and approach this increase in the population from a positive, an asset approach, not a deficit approach in terms of learning language. So I'm happy to see that we're increasing the positions. Thank you.
Thank you.
The numbers that blew my mind at the original meeting was that our high school ELL teacher has a current caseload of 60 students plus 15 that she's monitoring. That's absolutely mind-blowing, and it's desperately needed, and I'm so proud that we're going to go ahead and do this, get 3 extra teachers, much needed.
Any other discussion? We have a first and a second. Roll call, please.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Nigrini?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mrs. Kasper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
Student Services, Mrs. Cocker.
9.1, request approval to waive tuition in accordance with policy number 202 for 4th grade student Spring Ridge to remain enrolled in the district for the completion of the 2020-21 school year. 9.2, request approval to waive tuition in accordance with policy number 202 for a 3rd grade student, Cornwall Terrace, to remain enrolled in the district for the completion of the 2020-21 school year. 9.3, request approval to waive tuition in accordance with policy number 202 for a 1st grade student, Cornwall Terrace, to remain enrolled in the district for the completion of the 2020-21 school year. 9.4, request approval of the amended attachment affiliation agreement with Moravian College approved at the April 6, 2021 meeting. There was an incorrect end date to the prior contract. 9.5, request permission to contract with Hogan Learning Academy for 1 special ed student for 2020-21 school year services at a cost of $400 per day, beginning 4/12/21 and ending 6/4/21, pending solicitor review and approval. 9.6, request permission to contract with the Vista School for 2021 extended school year services for 1 special education student at a cost of $8,191.05, beginning July 5th, 2021, and ending August 12th, 2021, pending solicitor review and approval. 9.7, request permission to contract with Capstone Academy for 1 special education student for 2021 extended school year services at a cost of $11,537.50, beginning 7/5/2021 and ending 8/6/2021, pending solicitor review and approval.
Thank you. Looking for motion to approve agenda items 9.1 through 9.6 as presented. Mr. Martin first. Do we have a second? Dr. Kennedy, any discussion?
Just a question. With regard to extended learning in the summer, is Wilson responsible? I would imagine we're responsible for that.
Yeah, part of a student's program in special services requires that if a student qualifies for extended school year services based on their special need, that it is a requirement of the local district to pay for those expenses. In these particular situations, these are extremely specialized schools with our most needy students, and that's why you see a number of those come up each year, because the Wilson School District cannot provide those services to those students, and we contract out.
Okay, thanks.
Any other comments or questions? We have a first and a second. Roll call, please.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Nigrini?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
10.1, request approval of the Wilson 2021 website maintenance proposal by Launch DM for the amount not to exceed $8,755 as attached. Looking for a motion?
Schneider.
Mr. Schneider first. Do you have a second?
McCray.
Mr. McCray, any discussion?
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
I'd just like to make one comment. I want to publicly acknowledge Mr. Fitterling and Mrs. Troutman for their continued work to ensure that our website continues to be as current and as efficient as it can be. And this will eliminate an issue that we had to deal with maybe, I believe it was about 4 years ago, where our website was so antiquated that it required a major overhaul. This will bring us into the most recent functionality and will continue to improve our website moving forward so that our community can benefit from its current state.
Is the app going to come with it?
Say that again.
Is the app going to come, is it going to be an app now?
Eventually, yes. This is not inclusive of that app, but the app is on its way. Hopefully in the fall, early fall sometime, we'll be bringing that to the board for approval, which will even improve the functionality for parents even more.
Thank you. Any other discussion? We have a first and a second. Roll call, please.
Mr. Nigrini?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
Under operations, 11.1, requesting approval to list the Lincoln Park parcel for sale with restrictions with Mount Wolf of Remax Realtors. Looking for a motion?
So move the green.
Mr. Nigrini, do we have a second?
Second case.
Mr. Case, any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Hart. Just so that the public is aware in terms of the reasoning behind putting this parcel up for sale, it has been determined through our discussions through administration and this board that the Lincoln Park site is not conducive based upon its size and the requirements that the district has for the potential of building a new school for that essentially to be utilized. So by putting this parcel up for sale with the idea that there may be in the future the potential of obtaining other particular parcels of land in order to potentially construct a new building is certainly financial benefit to do so. Secondly, regarding the restrictions, always a concern about any particular parcels of land and development is the added possibility of increased student enrollment, the restriction for any purchaser of this land. We're looking to have restrictions of 55 and older development. So the public is aware of the intent and nature of 11.1. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or discussion? Dr. Kennedy?
My first house that we ever bought when we lived here was 2 houses down from Lincoln Park at 507 Dorchester. And it is the greatest neighborhood, I think, in Wilson. And I think this district, several years ago when they shut down the school, did that neighborhood dirty. And I am going to vote no because I don't think it's fair to that neighborhood to change the entire character of that neighborhood by putting a giant 55 and older development or townhouses or whatever it ends up being in the middle of that neighborhood.
Thank you. Any other comments or discussion? We have a first and a second. Roll call, please.
Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
No.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Nigrini?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
8 yes, 1 no.
11.2, looking for a motion to approve to enter into a contract with Baynon A Target Sports Company to replace the West Track at a cost not to exceed, at a cost of $361,483 under CoStar's pending solicitor review and approval. 11.3, request approval to enter into an agreement with K&W Krosky and Wilson LLC for land survey and site design, permitting, bidding, and construction. 11.4, request approval to award the bid of the Aquatics Rehabilitation Project to Mainline Commercial Pools at a cost of $597,100 pending review, solicitor review, and approval. Looking for motion to approve items 11.2 through 11.4 as presented.
Nigrini.
Mr. Nigrini first. Do we have a second?
Schneider.
Mr. Snyder second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Case?
Yes?
Mrs. Kasper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Nigrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
8 yes, 0 no.
Under Finance, Mrs. Cocker.
12.1, request approval to award contracts for the purchase of fuel for the 2021-2022 school year through the Berks County Joint Purchasing Board to Tally Petroleum Enterprises for diesel at a price of $1.8618 per gallon and for unleaded gasoline at a price of $1.8352 per gallon as presented. 12.2, request approval of the Berks County Intermediate Unit proposal for tax bill services, including the printing of school real estate and per capita tax bills and payment tracking using e-tax software per the attached agreement. 12.3, motion to approve a resolution authorizing the issuance of general obligation bonds in the maximum amount of up to $61,300,000 in one or more series for purchases of the refunding or restructuring of a portion of the school district's outstanding general obligation bonds, series of 2016. The refunding or restructuring of a portion of the school district's outstanding general obligation bonds, series A of 2016. The refunding or restructuring of a portion of the school district outstanding general obligation note, series of A of 2020. The planning, designing, acquiring, constructing, equipping, and furnishing alterations, additions, and improvements to the existing high school and athletic fields and facilities. The planning, designing, acquiring, construction, equipping, and furnishing alterations, additions, and improvements to various school buildings, including the acquisition of real property and/or equipment, and paying the costs and expenses related to the issuance of the bonds, and to accept the proposal of RBC Capital Markets, LLC, as set forth in that certain bond purchase agreement, a copy of which is attached to the resolution for the purchase and sale of the bonds. 12.4, request approval to transfer the remaining balance of $2,732.28 from the Clean Teens Club to the Spirit Club and inactivate the Clean Teens Student Activities account as requested by the advisor. 12.5, request approval of the budget transfers dated March 11th, 2021 through April 14th, 2021 as attached.
Looking for motion to approve finance agenda items 12.1 through 12.5 as presented.
Martin moves.
Mr. Martin first. Do we have a second?
Second Case?
Mr. Case, any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Kasper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Nigrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
Transportation, Mrs. Cocker.
13.1, request approval to award the propane tank acquisition and installation to Rhodes Energy as bid at a cost of $239,815. Mandated public health measures, including but not limited to proper social distancing, shall be observed pending solicitor review and approval. 13.2, request approval to award the propane supply to Rhodes Energy as bid at a cost of $1.18 per gallon, locked in for 3 years. Mandated public health measures, including but not limited to proper social distancing, shall be observed pending solicitor review and approval. 13.3, request approval to award the electrical contract for the propane tank installation to HB Fraser Company as bid at a cost of $16,820. Mandated public health measures, including but not limited to proper social distancing, shall be observed pending solicitor review and approval.
Looking for a motion to approve transportation agenda items 13.1 through 13.3 as presented.
Kocher?
Mr. Cocker first. Do you have a second?
McCray?
Mr. McCray, any discussions? Roll call, please.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Nigrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mrs. Kasper?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
Under extracurricular, 14.1, request approval of the affiliation agreement for clinical practice internship and the use of the facility as an athletic training internship site between East Stroudsburg University and Wilson School District as attached. Looking for a motion?
Kocher?
Mrs. Cocker first. Do you have a second?
Kennedy?
Dr. Kennedy, any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Nigrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mrs. Kasper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
Under policies, 15.1, final reading and adoption of the policies as listed. Looking for a motion to approve.
Kocher?
Mrs. Cocker first. Do you have a second?
Kasper?
Mrs. Kasper, any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Nigrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mrs. Kasper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
And we have the first reading of the policies as listed. Under miscellaneous, we have the enrollment report and committee reports. 17.1, Berks Career and Technology Center. Mrs. Kasper.
Thank you, President Hart. We have not met. There's no report. Our next meeting is on April 28th.
Thank you. Wilson Equity Task Force. Mrs. Kasper.
Yes. We met on Wednesday, April 7th, here in the admin building. And we continued to work on our 4 task groups, the curriculum and professional development, policy, staffing and representation, and awareness activities and events. I participated in the curriculum and professional development, and we hope that we'll be able to kick off our equity PD with the staff in the coming school year with some information around equity versus equality and how it relates to our curriculum and teaching. At the end of the meeting, each group got a chance for a short debriefing and was assigned some homework for the committee so that we can keep things kind of moving. It's really hard in this COVID environment to get events and things like that moving. But I did want to encourage folks to support the events of the students who are involved in our STAR club and in connection with the Voice Up Berks. If you look at their website, they have a few events coming up that really are inspirational if you hear the students talk in their discussions around issues of social justice and equity. They do have a Global Youth Day coming up on April 25th. And they also have a film discussion on May 4th, where they're going to be discussing part 2 of the Netflix docuseries, Amend the Fight for America. So student conversations are always insightful. So I would encourage people to connect with those. Thank you.
Thank you. Berks County IU, Dr. Kennedy.
Yes, the IU met on Thursday. Ms. Sabrina Worley, the learning support teacher at Coomer Elementary, was the recipient of the Annie Sullivan Award. I'm still salty last year that Anna Ackley didn't win. And unfortunately, none of our Wilson teachers were nominated this year, so we're going to have to get on that and make sure somebody gets nominated next year. The Pennsylvania Association of School Administrators, PASA, named Dr. Hackman the 2020 Service to the Profession Award.
And Dr. Faidley was in the news again. He is participating with 6 other superintendents in the new Superintendent's Academy, where seasoned superintendents are meeting with brand-new superintendents, and it's a mentoring program. So I think that's a really exciting thing, and I'm happy we're able to be involved in that. That's it.
Thank you. Curriculum Committee, Dr. Kennedy.
The Curriculum Committee has not met since our last board meeting.
Burke CIT, Mrs. Schlossman. Extracurricular, Mrs. Kocher.
Yes, we met last Monday, April 12th at noon. There were some project updates on the athletic side. Fencing at the JV softball field was updated. Backboards in lower house and southern gyms were replaced. Improvements to the outdoor high school basketball court, which is located right next to the tennis courts up on the high school campus. That was improved, and most of the work was done in-house by our operations team, which ended up saving a good amount of money. So thank you to Mr. Simcox and his team for that. On the music side, we have a schedule for ensemble performances for orchestra, concert band, jazz band, concert choir. All of the performances will incorporate social distancing, masking, and have limited capacity per venue. So that schedule is available on our extracurricular notes online. And for drama, One Act Festival is going to be April 16th at 7 p.m. and April 17th at 1 p.m. And the Midsummer Night's Dream will be May 13th, 14th, and 15th. So I'm sure I'll give a little more detail next time for that. That's my report.
Thank you. Facilities, Mr. Nigrini.
Thank you, Mr. Hart. We met on Monday of last at 4:30 prior to our board workshop on the potential of building a new facility here in the district. Many of the items that we discussed in the facilities meeting last Monday were items on this evening's agenda. A few other matters that were discussed briefly, just some updates on awaiting on roofing contracts and asphalt bids over at Wilson Southern. One of the main issues of discussion besides what appeared on this evening's agenda, we heard from Matt Citrone about the possibility of some sound system upgrades over at West and Southern. We had recently done so here at the high school. The systems over at West and Southern are not only outdated, there are some technical issues that have been occurring at those two middle schools. I shared my daughter recently performed over at West, and there was a number of instances where some of the students were not able to be heard during the course of the show. And secondly, to be able to have a uniform system throughout the district, that sometimes you run into issues of having two different systems and difficulty in knowing which system operates in a particular way. So we're going to get some numbers together in terms of what those costs may look like, number one. And then secondly, waiting on the decision of this board ultimately of what we might like to do over at Southern as one of the considerations that the board does have is whether or not we're going to keep that in the traditional middle school sense, if we're going to build a new middle school, and then what to do with that particular space. So we're just gathering some information on that. We'll have more to report in the future. And that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Finance, Mr. Martin.
We haven't met since our last board meeting, but I did want to thank you and the board for voting positive for the bond financing. I think it's an opportune time to borrow, and I think it's well overdue. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Human Resources, no report. Legislative, Mr. Martin.
Oh, yes, the legislators are back in session this week. A lot of bills were up for review and for voting. They have 3 days to vote on the Senate and 6 days for the House. Nothing of particular importance to the educational system, but they did meet the week of the 12th. The Education Committee met to go over charter schools, funding, various things impacting budgets in the Commonwealth. Which leads me to the COLA meeting last Tuesday, and there was two main topics discussed, and one was charter school funding, and the other one was special education. And special education kind of flip-flops back into both of them, but Richard did a fantastic job presenting to the group. I was very impressed with the way things were being handled, how they balanced the situation, and I think that the plan that they have in place is a good plan because everybody's fighting for the same dollar. So once again, I thought it was a great presentation, and I look forward to doing some more work on that. Senate Bill 381, Act 86, as you know or may not know, expires at the end of this year, our fiscal year. And Senate Bill 381 by Mr. Martin from Lancaster would extend the waivers on some of the temporary teachers professionals. So that's not voted on yet, but I can't see why it wouldn't get approved. But anyway, that's it.
Thank you. Public Relations, Mrs. Troutman.
Good evening, everyone. I just have a couple quick items I wanted to share with you. The first is some Wilson good news. We were very excited to learn that Southern Middle School student Anthony Fiore was recently named the second place winner in the middle school category for the National Center for State Courts 2021 Civics Education Essay Contest. His essay was one of 1,826 entries, so that's amazing. He was second out of all of those entries, and he was selected as a finalist by Texas Chief Justice Nathan Hecht and Colorado Justice Richard Gabriel. So that's a huge accomplishment, and we're very, very proud of Anthony. And we did share his accomplishments on district social media. Also, I wanted to let you know that we recently launched a social media campaign spotlighting our 2021 graduates. All seniors were given the opportunity to share their post-graduation plans, and individual graphics containing their photo and those future plans are being developed by our Public Relations Honors intern. Those posts are currently being shared on our district social media platforms, including Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Hopefully you've had a chance to see them. The campaign has already received great response from the community, and it will continue through the end of May. Because we have over 500 graduates. So there'll be a lot of opportunities to share all that excitement over the next few weeks. And just a quick note, stay tuned. We are in the process of developing a comprehensive website that will contain all of the celebratory opportunities we have for the class of 2021. So we're hoping to launch that website by the end of this week. Thank you.
Thank you. Education Foundation, Mr. Case. Technology, Mr. Schneider. Student Outreach, Ms. Giani Clarke.
Minithon is having a busy month, and we're excited to hopefully host some sort of in-person Minithon event. But before that, we have our drive-in movie on April 23rd at 8 in the Wilson High School lower house parking lot. We're currently selling t-shirts, so make sure to order your shirt, either a high school shirt, a middle school shirt, elementary, or a community shirt. And the link is on our Minithon social media accounts. And we're also hosting Zumba on April 24th from 6 to 7 at Gursky Stadium. Please participate in the Her Drive and spread awareness of the ongoing drive alongside the Her Drive organization. It's a nonprofit organization that provides bras, menstrual care, and general hygiene items to people in need in an effort to combat period poverty. Donations can be dropped off at the upper house and lower house nurses' offices through May 3rd. And congratulations to Colby Snyder and Liang, who's right over there, for advancing to the next round of the Chemistry Olympiad competition.
Thank you. Dr. Faidley.
Thank you, President Hart. At our last meeting, I indicated that I would give a summary to the board regarding our math forum that took place last Wednesday, and I want to thank Mr. Case and Mr. McRae for their attendance at that event. I also want to thank the leadership of the gifted parent group, as well as the students that spoke that evening. In addition, I would also like to thank Dr. Trickett and his team of professional educators, Mr. Kaufman, Mr. Dillon, and others for their steadfast work in putting the forum together and listening to the concerns of our parent community, our student community, as well as giving a very well thought out presentation on the math sequence. I met again with Dr. Trickett, Dr. Hinkle, Dr. Hu, Dr. Hoffert this morning at 11 a.m. and we talked through answering some of the questions, or most of the questions, or all of the questions that were brought forward at the math forum. In the very near future, Dr. Trickett is going to be reaching out to schedule a time to get together with Dr. Hinkle and Dr. Hu to go through many of the answers to those questions. Again, you know, this has been a full year process with our math educators in coming up with this sequence based on their recommendations. There were some excellent questions at our last forum that we do want to follow up on, and we'll be providing that information to that group moving forward. I do know that there are students in attendance this evening that will be making some public comments in reference to our math sequence, and want to say that we always welcome public comment, and throughout the course of our leadership in this district in terms of public comment, we've always tried to address those questions as quickly as possible. So even though there won't be an active dialogue tonight regarding the public comment, rest assured that we will add those questions to the list that we are currently working on with our math team, and we'll be sharing information out regarding those questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I make one more comment before we move on?
No.
No.
Go ahead.
I don't know if you were here on the high school campus over the weekend, but it's worth a mention. Drew Kaufman, our athletic administrator, director of athletics, there were more events going on here this weekend than I think you could count on one hand. And as a former athletic director, I know the stress level that can put you under. You know, the main concern is, where is everybody going to park and how am I going to manage that? He did a superb job of leadership in that arena. We also had the ACT test going on, and I know that because I dropped my daughter off and picked her up from that event and was able to catch a little bit of the track meet that was going on from the hill. But again, I just want to congratulate him and commend him for his hard work and dedication to making sure that things run so smoothly in that realm. Because we very rarely get complaints about the organization of what's going on our campus. But there were a lot of people here. And that's a good thing, because that means we're getting more back to normal, right? Everything was safely social distanced, and they followed our safety protocols, so it makes it even better.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Mr. Moravit, before we have public participation.
The opportunity is now for public participation on non-agenda items. Pursuant to board policy and the Sunshine Law, it is a 3-minute opportunity. It is not question and answer, but it's opportunity for members of the public to provide the board with information and comment on matters that are or may come before it. I will run the clock, and at 1 minute, I'll attempt to give any speaker the high sign to let them know that there's 1 minute left.
Okay. Thank you. Mrs. Kocher.
Good evening, board members. At this point, I have emailed and spoken with many of you. And I was under the impression that there would be a little bit more of a presentation this evening, and I did make a leap that there might be some type of vote afterwards. This morning, Dr. Hinkle and I were informed that no such vote was taking place. So for that mistake, I apologize. I never intend to spread misinformation. Administration has asked for more time to process the parent feedback that went from Wednesday's town hall, so I eagerly await their responses. I would like to echo one point that Dr. Faidley has expressed. when he did tell us that the district has sought out other top districts when seeking to make these changes, both locally and from a broader region, including Philadelphia's Main Line. Districts such as Wyomissing, Boyertown, Radnor, and Lower Merion all have math course sequences that include high school level courses as early as 7th grade. As parents, we want to be assured that the high ability students at Wilson will have the same educational opportunities as the high ability learners, both locally, within the state, and nationally. Thank you.
Hart and Mosetti.
Hello, my name is Hart and I'm a current senior at Wilson High School. I'm reading this statement on behalf of Olivia Shea, graduated last year. Dear staff, students, and parents of the Wilson community, my name is Olivia, and I am finishing my first year at the University of California, Berkeley. I heard about the approved change to the math program at Wilson from my friends, and I just want to provide a bit of my personal experience with this program. I joined the school and district in 8th grade and was placed in Algebra 1B, the normal track for math. Coming from a school that had a different math curriculum, I felt a bit overwhelmed with the material. But after a couple weeks, I got used to the pace of the class. Eventually, I felt confident enough to take on ISTEM geometry in my freshman year. Near the end of my freshman year, my mom proposed that I take Algebra 2 over the summer. At that time, I knew nothing about higher math classes such as AP Calc AB or BC, so I saw no benefit. Why should I have them pay $700 and sacrifice my summer vacation for an online class when I'm already on the normal track for math? But my mom insisted, so I reluctantly agreed. Taking Algebra 2 as a summer class was a terrible experience. Imagine it's the beginning of the pandemic all over again, except the class is 2 times the normal pace, and you rely on hours of videos and textbook reading to complete the course. I sometimes spent entire days at home to finish my work, and many times I felt isolated. But at the same time, taking Algebra 2 over the summer was one of the best choices I made in high school. I went on to take honors pre-calc as a sophomore, and eventually both Calc AB and BC. At Berkeley, I was able to use those credits to bypass 2 whole semesters and go straight into multivariable calculus, a class I enjoyed and performed well in. If I hadn't taken Algebra 2 over the summer, I would have never taken Calc BC, taken advantage of such a path in college. Now, from what I understand, there are several options to take Calc BC by senior year. One is to take a math class over the summer, as I did, but by no means do I think this option replaces the traditional classroom environment that comes with taking the math during the school year. As someone who joined Wilson with less knowledge in algebra and then took Algebra 2 over the summer to catch up with my accelerated peers, I felt that I had a weak foundation in it. Although this didn't hinder me from doing well in calculus, it might for another student whose learning style doesn't fit the rigorous demand of a virtual summer class. If I came to Wilson earlier, I would have much rather taken Algebra 1 in 7th grade so I could take Calc BC my senior year. A second option I've heard of is to double up on math courses in the school year. Throughout all 4 years of my high school years, I had trouble fitting in all the classes I wanted to take. I even took AP seminar my sophomore year and skipped to Honors Spanish 5 my junior year so that I could have more space in my senior schedule, but I still wasn't able to take all the classes I wanted. I'd also wanted to take band all 4 years, but I was only able to take it my senior year, unfortunately. I'm sure I'm not the only student who had these struggles, and removing the option to take Algebra 1 in 7th grade would certainly worsen this. Since I've graduated, I'm not entirely familiar with the cause for regressing the accelerated track in the Wilson curriculum, but I do not think this is the right option, because doing so would bring down the standard of education at Wilson and impede the success of a lot of the bright students here. I wouldn't want another person to need to go through what I did, nor do I think doubling up in math classes would be favorable. Many of the school districts in Berks have the same accelerated track, so why is Wilson removing it? Thank you for your time, and I hope you take my story into consideration when you reevaluate this change.
Next, Ryan Hu.
Good evening, board members. I'd like to thank my fellow peers and parents for being here tonight to voice their concerns regarding the math program changes. My name is Ryan Hu, and I'm currently a senior at Wilson. I understand that discussions are ongoing, and I appreciate their willingness to hear feedback. As I approach the end of my senior year, I want to share the perspective of a student who has been through this accelerated math sequence. The district's vision statement reads, empowering our students to create their own future. Keeping Algebra 1 in 7th grade is essential for advanced math students to accomplish many of their academic goals. It allows students to take AP Calc BC and calculus-based classes like AP Physics C, which are both classes that provide the foundation for a STEM career. At the town hall, anecdotal evidence was cited as one reason for the change in curriculum. A district representative had spoken with several math teachers regarding Algebra 1, and the teacher said it's too much content and too little time, and the kids aren't ready for it, and that students aren't getting a solid foundation. I find these statements to be invalid. From my own experience, I can wholeheartedly attest that many of my peers and I had no difficulties getting a solid foundation in Accelerated Algebra 1. We took on the challenge, we excelled, and we did get a solid foundation. I find it very disheartening that our efforts and successes in Algebra 1 are being diminished by the so-called anecdotal evidence. It's important to hear the voices of stakeholders. I'd like to echo my friend Amaya Shah when she suggested at the town hall last Wednesday the administration needs to survey the current students in AP Statistics, AP Calc AB, and most importantly, the students in AP Calc BC before they graduate. Surveying these students will gather invaluable perspectives regarding their accelerated math experience. This survey should ask students the questions we are debating. Did they feel ready for Algebra 1 in 7th grade? Did they receive a strong foundation in algebra? Did taking Algebra 1 in 7th grade negatively impact them in subsequent math classes? And the most important question, with the benefit of hindsight, was the decision to take Algebra 1 in 7th grade the right one? Unfortunately, the student perspective was missing from the administration's year-and-a-half-long process on changing the math curriculum. However, I'm hopeful that after hearing the student's point of view, the administration will reevaluate the recent math curriculum changes to address the needs of accelerated math students. I believe it's in the best interest of Wilson stakeholders to be involved in this decision regarding the math curriculum, and I'm hopeful that the administration will conduct a student survey and publicly share the results. At the town hall meeting, Dr. Trickett said, "We are still committed to creating those conversations and that flexibility that's needed to ensure we're meeting the needs of all students." I applaud that sentiment, and I hope that Wilson will empower our students to create their own future and keep the option of taking Algebra 1 in 7th grade to meet the needs of the students already. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kayleen Tran, and I'm currently a junior at Wilson. I'd like to speak against delaying Algebra 1 from 7th to 8th grade. I feel as if this inhibits students from being able to excel in the much higher level math courses at a very early age. But before I continue, I feel the need to speak about my experience with taking certain math classes from elementary school all the way to high school. So my parents taught me math at a very young age, which is quite the funny story because my father would make me multiply by hundreds in 1st grade before we even knew how to add, subtract, or even count to 1,000. At the time, I felt as if math came so naturally to me and that it was one of the few subjects that I genuinely enjoyed throughout my childhood. Unfortunately, I did not score very high on the math placement test that joined advanced level courses in middle school. But that did not stop me from exceeding the expectations of my teachers, eventually proving that score to be inaccurate of my abilities in the end. I won awards for getting the highest grade average in algebra in 7th and 8th grade. Even with the math benchmark test, I would constantly score proficient or advanced on each section given. I vividly remember many people, including teachers, questioning why I was still taking algebra in 8th grade. When they were certain that I should have been in geometry instead. Having that engraved in my thoughts, I had an epiphany, which also made me wonder why I was still in algebra as well. Realizing that I would never be able to take AP Calculus BC by my senior year if I continued on my current math courses at the time, taking algebra in 8th grade did create many complications for me. My family had to pay about $700 in order for me to take Algebra 2 over the summer after 9th grade. But the class took an entirety of each day of my break, cramming one whole course in just a couple of months. Even during vacations, I would constantly worry about completing the course on time. The numerous videos and assignments I've watched and worked on for just one section was baffling to me. Overall, this was an overwhelming experience, but on the other hand, every other student that already took geometry in 8th grade without relaxing during the summer. The reason why this is important to me is because I wouldn't want students to go through the same experience as I did. I was once a student that had to take Algebra 1 in my 8th grade year, but it was frustrating to work my way up to get into the higher math courses. Keeping the math pathway the way it is, one course at a time, is much more convenient for students to progress quickly at a younger age and develop advanced mathematical skills to excel in the future. Holding them back will hinder their abilities to show their true potential in the subject, making it seem as if they're too incompetent to solve simple math problems at their current age. It's obvious to assume that students might find it to be too troublesome to test out of their current math course or take 2 in 1 year, or even find it to be too expensive or time-consuming to take it over the summer. All in all, I hope you will reconsider the implementation of the decelerated pathway and continue the pathway for advanced students to take Algebra 1 in 7th grade. Thank you.
And last, David Hinkle.
I want to thank all the board members and Dr. Faidley and Dr. Trickett for listening to our concerns. And I want to really express my appreciation to both Dr. Faidley and Dr. Trickett for organizing last week's town hall meeting, especially on such short notice. I think we had a very productive discussion of the middle school math curriculum changes, and I really look forward to working with Dr. Trickett and other members of the committee as they consider whether enhancements to the math curriculum would be appropriate based on the various perspectives that we shared here tonight and at the town hall meeting and at the last board meeting. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. And yeah, I just want to thank everyone who's taken the time to reach out to board members, administration, town hall meeting last week, and for those who spoke this evening. I want to thank you for what you are encouraged to do. Any other business before the board?
Yeah, I just want to mention a couple of comments. First and foremost, I want to thank the administration and the entire curriculum team for putting together the town hall last week. I went in as a concerned parent, and I left feeling that regardless of what happens with the mathematics curriculum, our students have great opportunities here at Wilson to do whatever they want to do and to reach whatever heights that they want to reach, whether it's taking college classes in high school, doubling up, earning college credits, taking buses between schools. The sky is the limit, and there's enough time and schedules to do whatever you want to do. So I thank the administration for taking the time out, for explaining the why, listening to concerns, and then providing an opportunity for questions and answers. I thought it was a great meeting. I thought the team hit it out of the park in addressing those concerns, and I really appreciate that. We have a very thoughtful, critical thinking team here that cares about having an equitable curriculum, and I would highly suggest, if you haven't seen the town hall, to watch it and to really understand what it takes to build curriculum at our school. With that said, I 100% agree that we should not be giving high school credit for a geometry class when half that class is we are teaching algebra. And we definitely need to align triggers and keystone exams accordingly, so to some sort of a model of what we may have had 7 years ago, or somewhere around that time frame when things used to be like that. I would respectfully challenge our administration to continue talks and to try and find room for maybe a section at each school, each middle school, to address the concerns of the community and the great students that can handle the work. I think it's fair to continue that conversation, and I'm still trying to wrap around my brain if, say, a teacher such as Sal Ricoli is teaching, I don't know how many kids he teaches, 200 kids for a particular math class. If you take 200 kids, my microphone still working? If you take 200 kids and you teach them a particular class versus you're teaching now 180 you're taking 200 students and teaching a particular class versus now you're teaching 180 students that particular class and 20 the higher level class with a third track. I don't see how that would cost our district any more money. You still have that single teacher that is teaching that same exact or you know a different subject matter. Something to look into. What concerns me a little bit is with having said that any student can do whatever they want and go wherever they want, what my concern would be is that now you are busing students from the middle school to the high school. This is Wilson. We need to set standards for how you get into a particular track and push back the parents and keep that line of saying, you know, this is where the line is. It's not parent phone calls that get you in this class. I would imagine, and I say that respectfully, we have a lot of kids that may not be appropriately in that particular higher level track. So I understand what you're addressing today with the 2 tracks, but I still think we should have a third track, which is a full year of algebra, a keystone timed trigger at the end of it, and a full year of geometry with the depth of knowledge that we deserve here at Wilson. So I would like to see that continue. And with regard to WISE, I mean, my son took the advanced track last year, and the one thing he continues to say is, with middle school, the schedule and the rigor of middle school obviously is not as intense as high school. You have a little bit more bandwidth in the middle school to learn how to think mathematically without the rigor of high school ahead of you. He said, he continues to say, the preparedness he has for high school was drawn from those particular math classes because it was high school work. He was better prepared for high school and that rigor in high school. So again, I would challenge our administration to continue those conversations. I don't think it would cost us any money. I don't know if there's behind the scenes with regard to scheduling, but I think it's something that we can overcome. Anyway, those are my comments. I did take a look. One of the parents did send me, and I'm trying not to overstep my bounds. We have a professional group here that is in the classroom every day with these students and understands this best, and I trust their decisions. Again, I'm just asking for continued conversation. I did look at the Radnor. It looks like they have 4 tracks. I think that may be one too many. I think 3 tracks would be appropriate. So again, I would hope that we can continue those conversations. So thank you for listening. I have a mathematics degree with a concentration in actuary science. I did not take a single calculus class in high school, and with regard to sequencing and doubling up, I found the love of mathematics late in my college career, and it was traumatic. I still don't think I recovered from all the math classes I took my junior and senior year. So the more you can spread this sequencing out, I would say the better. So yeah. Anyway, thanks for listening.
Thank you. Any other comments? Board business? Looking for a motion to adjourn? Mr. McCray first. Do you have a second? Mr. Schneider. Thank you, everyone.